From a defabricated solar-powered garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominic. On today's episode, how to maintain calm during your latest visit to the cannabis dispensary when your buddy tells you to get out that credit card. And now, the podcast host who has no worries for such things because he makes all cannabis purchases with straight cash, Pete Dominic!
Oh, so very true. That is when I'm out of bitcoins in my pocket. Thank you, Pete Coe. What a great announcer he is. Welcome to today's episode of Stand Up, where I have a very special guest, actor, comedian, writer, amazing dude who I've loved my entire career, his whole career. The great Michael Ian Black joins me here on the podcast for the first time. It's a big get. We had a wonderful conversation, and I'm very excited to share it with you. And maybe you're listening to this show for the first time because Michael Ian Black let you know that he was on the show. Maybe he won't even let you know that he was on the show. But either way, if you're new to listening, Monday through Thursday, I usually do about a 10-minute news segment, and then I get to my interview. I often drop other interviews throughout the day now as well. And Friday and Saturday, I drop shows without the news, and on Thursday nights, all of my paid subscribers are welcome to join me at the Thursday night hangout that I host almost every Thursday at 8 p.m. East, and we've been doing it since the lockdown for the pandemic began back in March 2020. I started the podcast in November 19th after I ended my long run at SiriusXM, or I guess they ended it for me when they didn't renew my contract. But this is the show each and every day. I welcome brilliant, thoughtful, credible, respectful, hilarious, often guests joining me here, and we have conversations that inform, enlighten, inspire, and hopefully make things better in your life. And we have got a great community of folks that have connected over the years. So join us on Thursday night. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Go to standupwithpete.com for more. Oh, and follow me on TikTok. Thank you, Pete.Dominic. So let's get to that news segment real quick. Wow, there is obviously most of what is happening right now, or a lot of resources and conversation being paid to the indictment of a former president of the United States, the first ever. And so obviously I'm talking about that. I talked with Michael Cohen about that. I dropped that at the same time I'm dropping this conversation with Michael Ian Black. So he's got some great analysis if you want to go listen to that. It is available as well as this wherever you get your podcasts. But other things are happening. In fact, like the trial that's just opened in Montana, where 16 young people are arguing that the state's embrace of fossil fuels is robbing them and other residents of a healthy future. And two of those young people happen to be the sons of our friend Ryan Bussey, who, of course, the former firearms executive, wrote the book Gunfight. And I've been talking with him about his sons that are involved with this, but it's a really big deal. And I hope that you will read in on that. A landmark climate change trial opened yesterday. Case more than a decade in the making, is the first of a series of similar challenges pending in various states as part of an effort to increase pressure on policymakers to take more urgent action on carbon emissions, on pollution. The case revolves around the contention from 16 young residents who range in age from 5 to 22 that the state government has failed to live up to its constitutional mandate to, quote, maintain and improve a clean and healthful environment in Montana for present and future generations. So really, really big case, and we'll be talking more about that, of course, here on the show. Also, I'm sure you know about this, but Interstate 95 is like destroyed just northeast of Philadelphia, and one guy died. Apparently, the truck driver who was driving a tanker truck with gas, like 85,000 gallons or 8,000 gallons, whatever it was, and it melted the interstate. So what is that going to mean? Oh my gosh, what a nightmare that's going to be. Don't even try to travel on that area of I-95. Good luck this summer. That's going to take weeks or months, is what I'm hearing. A root canal forced President Biden to cancel his public events on Monday and postpone his meeting with NATO's Secretary General, which I told you was going to happen. We'll see. Hopefully his tooth is okay. Poor Biden. Fox News is demanding that Tucker Carlson stop posting his videos to Twitter. That's a real fun thing to watch, and I just like to remind everybody that it's a good day. It's a great day when Tucker Carlson isn't on Fox News, the most watched cable news, quote, news platform with millions of viewers every night. It really, I feel like the temperature went down like just half a degree. Anyone else feeling that at all? Bueller? The publisher of the Washington Post is stepping down after a nearly decade-long run. His name is Fred Ryan. Tim Scott and Nikki Haley have changed their tune just a little bit, and they're calling the Trump indictment very serious allegations. They're dipping their toe in the Trump criticism water. I'm sure they will have it bit off and learn from this mistake. The new Twitter CEO who's taken over, Elon Musk hired this woman, is being destroyed, roasted for her vow to make the Twitter platform the, quote, world's most accurate real-time information source. Twitter CEO Linda Yaccarino dropped her first Twitter thread since taking the helm of the social media giant Monday. It was met with less than warm reception. She began with praise of the eccentric billionaire Elon Musk, and then made those statements about Twitter being on a mission to be the world's most accurate real-time information source and global town square for communication, and said that's not an empty promise. Well, critics and observers are quick to point out that they believe it's just that, and that Elon Musk has proven himself a deeply unreliable arbiter of facts versus fiction. He's already sparked several controversies in recent months for spreading conspiracy theories, including the claim, by the way, that brutal attack on Paul Pelosi was not due to a home invasion, but a lover's spat. Yeah, Elon Musk spread that insidious conspiracy, which was, of course, debunked when a video of the attack was made public. Some of the criticism, the founder of Bellingcat, Elliot Higgins, writes, the owner of Twitter called Bellingcat a psyop because it reported accurate information about a mass shooter. Washington Post columnist Ishan Tharoor says everything in this thread, from its vacuous biz speak to the preposterousness of its proposition to the chorus of Twitter blue roofs mindlessly cheering it on, is evidence of the tech world delusion that has wrecked this site and our ability to find use in it. National security lawyer Bradley Moss said about this, your boss is a prime driver of inaccurate garbage. Media reporter Brian Stelter says the world's most accurate info source is very interesting and impossible goal. Jimmy Rushton, who is a foreign correspondent based in Kyiv, focused on the Russia invasion of Ukraine, said, the owner of this website repeatedly promotes neo-Nazis, conspiracy theorists, and Russian trolls, Linda. So there you go. That's just some of the reaction of her statement to make Twitter the most accurate place in the world. Good luck with that. And I hope it does. Hope that's how it works out. I'm at Pete Dominic on Twitter. Okay. Well, finally, what I wanted to share with you is news from the governor of California, the beautiful Gavin Newsom, who's announced that he's seeking an amendment to the United States Constitution that would restrict gun ownership. So I don't think this is really likely because of what it would need to get done, but it's a response to the deadliest wave of mass shootings in U.S. history that would put California in position as the most aggressive state in the union on gun control. He outlined his plan last week, and here is the 2-minute kind of PSA from Gavin Newsom that I think dropped yesterday.
Every time it's the same. They tell us we can't stop these massacres. They tell us we have to stand by and watch tragedy after tragedy unfold in our communities. They say we can't stop domestic terrorism without violating the Second Amendment, and that thoughts and prayers are the best we can do. I'm here to say that's a lie. In this country, we do have the power to change things, to reclaim our freedom from fear. Our ability to make a more perfect union is literally written into the Constitution. So today, I'm proposing the 28th Amendment to the United States Constitution to do just that. The 28th Amendment permanently enshrines 4 additions to the laws of our land. It raises the minimum age to purchase a firearm from 18 to 21. Because if you can't buy a beer, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. It mandates universal background checks to prevent truly dangerous people from purchasing a gun that can be used in a crime. It institutes reasonable waiting periods for all gun purchases, and it bans civilians from buying assault rifles, those weapons of war our founding fathers never foresaw. This will guarantee states as well the ability to enact common sense gun safety laws while leaving the Second Amendment intact and respecting America's gun-owning tradition. The 28th locks in the common sense constitutional protections that Democrats, Republicans, independents, and gun owners overwhelmingly support. And it ensures NRA-owned politicians can never strip those protections away. This fight won't be easy, and it certainly won't be fast. Convening a constitutional convention requires 2/3 of the states to call for this. California will be the first. But that's just the beginning. Join us by going to campaignfordemocracy.com and signing the petition. To protect our communities and protect our freedom, support the 28th.
Well, there you go. Campaignfordemocracy.org or 28thnow.org. That's Gavin Newsom, the current governor of California. Probably not going anywhere, but I appreciate the effort. I'll go sign up for it and support that and talk with people about it as well. So, all right. Well, one more thing before we get to the great Michael Ian Black. The Tony Awards were last night, and actress Denise Benton came out and made this statement, which I thought was pretty amazing and obviously went totally viral.
Hi, I'm Denise Benton, actor, thank you, and proud CMU alum. Earlier tonight, CMU and the Tony Awards presented the 2023 Excellence in Theater Education Award. And while I am certain that the current governor of my home state of Florida will be changing. Town immediately. We were honored to present this award to the truly incredible and life-changing Jason Zembick Young, enhancing the lives of students at South Plantation High School in Plantation, Florida.
There you go. That was last night at the Tony Awards. I thought that was a fun moment. In case you didn't hear it, Denise Benton. I think I pronounced her name wrong. Okay, well, that's what I've got for you in the news segment. Usually about 10 to 15 minutes. Try to keep it 10 minutes. 10 and 10. 10 stories in 10 minutes? No, that's a pretty hokey name, right? Let's just keep it where it's at. Joining me now for the first time. He is a comedian, an actor, writer, a director. He starred in several TV comedy shows like The State, Viva Variety, Stella, Wet Hot American Summer, The First Day of Camp, Michael and Michael Have Issues, Another Period, and so much more. He wrote screenplays for 2 feature films. He directed a movie called Wedding Days. He developed a bunch of shows for Comedy Central, a couple of which I worked on with him as the audience warm-up comedian. He's written several children's books now. There's simply nothing that he hasn't done that he can't do. And I talked to him while he was with his wife in Rome, Italy, where I guess he's been living for like a month now. His kids, I think, are 19 and 21 years old. And we talked about a whole bunch, from parenting to politics to UFOs and more. I really love this conversation. I really like Michael Ian Black, who always says what's on his mind, never holds back, and is hilarious and sincere and thoughtful and thought-provoking, and I hope that he will come back on the show. So please tell him that you heard him here. Go see him performing in Minneapolis, Minnesota, June 17th, this Saturday at the Cedar Cultural Center. Michael Ian Black, who, by the way, has a great new Substack, which I love, michaelianblack.substack.com. You can support him on Patreon. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh, there he is. We have a famous celebrity, a big name here on the show. Mostly a lot of policy experts, a lot of scholars, journalists, great people, great guests, very smart. But I mean, someone with your name recognition to step down and slum it with the peasants here. Thank you, Michael Ian Black. Wow, what a...
It's a real honor for you, and I'm just thrilled that I could make your day.
Yeah, well, you've made a lot of our days. You're making your days in Italy right now. And
Roma.
And you're drinking Italian coffee. And
well, I haven't gone full Italian because I'm drinking a English breakfast tea.
Oh, wow.
Which is my hot beverage of choice, even here in Italia.
Do you do you drink tea in front of Italians? That would seem deeply offensive.
You can't. Yeah. You can't. They'll stab you. You can't drink tea in front of an Italian. They'll curse your mother and then stab you.
Do you not like coffee?
Do I not like coffee? Is that what you asked?
Yeah. I was laughing. I realized I was starting to speak when I realized the consequences of drinking tea that you just laid out. And then I
Oh, I see. I thought you had cracked yourself up by saying, do you not like coffee? Which I thought was sort of an odd joke to laugh at.
When you get a little bit nervous to interview a big celebrity, because you've interviewed people bigger than you, your mind thinks just a little further ahead because you don't want to let that person down, especially when you're dealing with someone quick, like someone you dance with. And
so when you went deep, the question that you came up with was, so you don't like coffee?
No, that wasn't it. What I'm saying is, you said that if you drink coffee in front of Italians, they will, I believe you said, stab you in front of your family. And I was already on to my next question. And then my brain heard it. And then I had like a sneeze, like when you cough and you almost explode. So
I'll answer your question because I thought it was an insightful one. No, I don't like coffee.
Thank you. I want to talk to you about a lot of things. I heard you on Tim Heidecker's great show, and you said that you're there in Rome, Italy, because you had this concept, this conversation with your bride, your wife, who I guess you're still together with after all these years.
We were until Italy, and now she met a very attractive Vespa rider, and she has left me. I can't blame her. The guy was gorgeous. His name is Gianni. And he's got a 2013 Vespa and some very tight pants. I really couldn't even put up much of a fight.
How do you describe that men there are found attractive, really top-notch attractive, sexy, but if that same man with his man purse and his tapered pants, his very tight T-shirt, his greased up hair, and riding a Vespa, not obviously a manly... In this country, that man would not be seen even as straight.
No, he'd be the laughing stock of your small town. But here, he'll steal your bride.
That is so. If that dude drove through your small town in America, he would be. They would scream at him and tell him, "Stop forcing it down our throats."
Arrivederci, signori. Arrivederci.
He's just.
What I've noticed here, I mean, this is a little observational humor that nobody in your audience will understand, but it is true. All the men here over the age of 50 dress like they had one hit in the 80s.
Describe
it's
a little more specifically.
They all dress kind of cool, but their clothes have seen better days. They've clearly seen better days, but they still have some swagger, you know.
I love that.
You're sort of like, hey, if I ever reach the age of 50, which I'm confident I never will, I want to look like that.
You're under 50.
I'm 51.
Oh, you are there in Europe, and you're going to stay there for a little bit, and you have a lot of perspectives on America. And now you have perspectives on Europe, not that you didn't before, but you also have perspectives on what they think of America and Americans. And also, so what do you think about, what are they telling you over there about us?
Oh, I don't speak Italian, Pete.
No talking to them then even.
The subject doesn't really come up. It's mostly like, hey, do you guys carry English breakfast tea? Can I get the carbonara, please? Things like that. I don't have a lot of deep conversations, not just with the Italians, but really with anybody except for you. I save all my deep conversations for our infrequent appearances together.
That's super thoughtful and really generous, and it means a lot to me because
I will say, last night we were at a little restaurant in the Prati, which is a district right over there near St. Peter's Cathedral. And this is not a real touristy area where we were. It's a little bit into the Prati. And we were at a restaurant that we'd been to before. It's kind of like a neighborhoody place. And there was a big table of Americans just over, 2 tables down, about 10 of them, very loud. And, you know, as an American, that's the last thing you want, is to hear loud Americans representing your country in Italy. But I will say this, having been here now for a couple of months, listening to them, I thought to myself, as I think maybe the Italians were thinking, they're not bad people. They're just ebullient. they're just like excitable children who feel like they have just discovered Italy. Like they were the ones who discovered Italy, and we should cut them some slack.
But don't you think they're also probably bad people?
No, they seem like perfectly lovely people. They really did. I mean, they were a little older. They were probably, so maybe they were there celebrating somebody's 60th or something, but they had all the energy of a teenager, 10 teenagers. And they I don't want to say they were delightful, because they weren't, but they weren't offensive in the way that I might have found them offensive during my first week there.
I love that analysis, and I can imagine them now exactly the way you're describing them. But what about the fact that you're Michael Ian Black? If I'm American and I'm in Europe or anywhere else but America, and I see or hear someone else speaking American, it's like there's a thing, and it's, even though I might not like them here, I would like them there just for the sake of we have similar whatever language, much less anything else. Then I might find out that they're fascist or something, and be like, I'm good. But you're Michael Ian Black, so you're famous, and so Americans not only hear or see an American maybe speaking, but they also then recognize you. Does that happen?
I think it's only happened, I would say, 3 times in 3 months. So not very frequently, but in fairness, I don't get recognized in America very much.
That's surprising.
Because despite your protestations to the contrary, and despite your glowing introduction, my fame has faded like the sun in New York City these last few days. It's just obscured by Canadian fug.
Your fame has been obscured by Canadian. But that was just a metaphor. Like there's no Canadian.
It was a metaphor, and then if you want to say, well, Ryan Reynolds is Canadian, he's more famous than you, I'd be like, yeah, that's right.
Do you look at your career and think that you would like to be doing something that you did before, or do you miss anything? Do you wish for anything? You've done so well. You've done every single thing you can do in the entertainment business, and now you've written several books, if that's whatever business that is. You've done it all.
Well, first, it's the publishing business. But first of all, I want to thank you for not putting the word career in air quotes when you said it. That was very kind of you. You didn't have to do that. So I appreciate that.
You've done, I am very familiar with your career, but before, because I tried to prepare for my guests, I have notes and stuff. Like I looked at your IMDb and your Wikipedia and everything. And what I'm saying is you've done everything. You've done comedy, you've acted, you've directed, you've written screenplays. Many shows. I worked on one of your Comedy Central shows. I was the audience warm-up comedian. We didn't talk then, but we talked later when I had a show, and I've been following you forever, and there's nothing you haven't done. So I don't know if there's something that you wish you were doing. And I ask this for anybody can look at their career and say, hey, these were the high points. I'd like to get back to that. Or are you saying, I'm going to live in Europe. I'm good. My kids are grows up. My wife and I are going to hang out, and whatever happens, happens. Where are you at mentally?
Well, mentally, I'm kind of there, what you just described. Financially, I'm not there at all. Financially, I'm in the earlier example, where I'd like to get back to some of that.
You gave away $78,000 to a local library.
I sure did.
Well, that would make me think that
if I could have that money back, believe me, I would take it.
No.
Well, it wasn't my money to give. I was on Celebrity, named that tune, and I did a nice job, and I won.
Oh, and you had to give it to the charity?
I mean, what I should have done is said, hey, it's a small little library. Do me a favor. They don't have, they're not ready to take on this kind of donation. Give it to me in cash, and I'll make sure it gets to them. That's what I should have done.
Money's stupid. I want you to be doing whatever you want to be doing, because that's the best stuff that you do.
Well, how much can I really complain? I mean, I just spent the last 3 months in Rome,
Right.
I mean, I can't afford it, but I'm here.
Your kids are like older now, and so it's like you don't have to worry about that as much. Like, are they in college, out of college?
They're in college, and I do have to worry about that because I have to pay for their college somehow.
Got it. Yeah. So it sounds like you're like the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm celebrities, just like you, Pete, just like you.
Do you have a plan? You're going to be doing stand-up in Minnesota. I just saw that and tweeted about it. Everybody should go see Michael. June 16th, was it? 17th. You're going to be back in the States doing stand-up. What else do you want to be doing?
Very briefly. So after we leave Roma next week, we're going to London for a couple months. Same thing, no real plan. And then but then a couple days after I get there, I have to fly to Nebraska because there's a festival that the hometown of Johnny Carson puts on every year, and I'm going to do that. Oh. And then the next day I'm going to go to Minneapolis. Then the next day I'm going to go back to London. Great.
Oh, that's fun. Well,
yeah, I think it'll be fun.
So go see him. You can go see him, and it's amazing to see you live.
Yeah, it's your call. It's your call. I get paid either way. You know?
So I have written down parenting. You did like an hour on the very popular parenting show, and your kids are, I think you said, are 19 or 21. At least maybe that's what you said then. But
22 and 20 now.
My daughters are 15 and 19. And my question is to you, did you and your wife do a good job?
I think only time will tell. So far, I mean, how do you want to define it? Do you want to go by felonies? Because so far, by that measure, we've done an excellent job. No felonies to this point. Career-wise, neither of them have a career. Relationally, like in terms of like having successful relationships, neither of them have had any meaningful relationships to this point. So, I mean, I guess by any sort of objective standard, no, we have not done a good job. I mean, the way you normally look at somebody's life, you know, well, did they do good in the world? Not really. Not yet.
I think, though, when you talk about your parents, you just wrote a really thoughtful thing about your mom for your Substack, which I recommend everybody and your dad, and people can read about your parents. But I mean, it was fraught and dysfunctional, and your dad died when he was, 39? How old were you?
Yeah, I was 12. He was 39.
And so if I read about, don't you think about your parents and the job they did when you consider the job that you're going to do? And didn't you basically spend as much time as you could with your kids?
Oh, yeah, of course. I think that's one of the big shifts over the last few decades is the amount of time fathers spend with their children has gone up a lot.
Yeah.
Which is, I think is probably a good thing. I mean, stands to reason that would be a good thing. And I'm grateful that I was able to spend so much time with my kids. And what's nice now is that they seem to like us. You know, like I talk to my daughter now pretty much almost every day. You know, like yesterday she texted and she wrote yesterday at 10:28 p.m. my time. This is the text from her, quote, "Got a tuna salad," unquote. So like we have very good conversations.
I love that.
Here's why I love it. In all sincerity, not that I was able to text my mom when I was her age, but the fact, there's two things. One, that she thought to tweet something or to text something so banal to me, I like, that she thought I might be interested. And two, that she knew that it would be funny to tweet something so banal to me. I also appreciate. Got a tuna salad. What can I say to that?
Wait, did she tweet or text it?
Text. I confuse tweeting with texting because I'm addicted to Twitter.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that too. I love that. I love that your daughter texts you like that. I hope that my daughters will do things like that. Are your kids funny?
Yeah, they're both funny in different ways.
Yeah.
My response, I felt like, was pretty good to her.
Oh, what'd you say?
I wrote, "Holy shit." That was my response.
I like that. I like your relationship.
I'm a professional comedian, you know what I mean? So for me, like for her, like I can appreciate her attempt at humor, but I'm going to respond in a professional manner. And I think my response really blew her text out of the water.
Yeah, I do
but
too.
That's not for me to say. That's
weird.
Whatever.
Weird that you
Let
don't
history be the judge.
Weird that you dunk on her because you're so much funnier. Because of who you are. Do you ever tell your kids who you are? Do you know who I am? Have you ever gotten in a rage and like, do you know, and then mention some career credits?
Well, unfortunately, like they know exactly who I am. And my son will say things like, well, you used to be famous, things like that. And that's,
oof.
Yeah, that'll cut you right to the quick.
Oh, yeah, that's cutting. He puts it right in there. Wow.
Yeah, but I like it. I can't lie. I definitely appreciate it.
I was reading, you've been tweeting and talking and writing a lot about alien stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason for this is, and I psychoanalyze people, Michael.
Yeah. Oh, you're asking the reason, or you want to give me your analysis first?
I just want you to know that I'm about to psychoanalyze you.
Great.
Because you wrote this up in Substack. You wrote it all out. I believe that people who are interested or even borderline obsessed, I'm not saying you are, but a lot of people are, with ghosts, paranormal, and alien stuff, they are often, there's a strong correlation that they had an experience at some point in their life that was so real that it changed the trajectory of their life about what they believed. You had an experience. You saw something as a teenager. You wrote a Substack about it. And it's one of the most fascinating things because you talk about a memory you had, and then you include in this article in Substack the transcript of a text message you had where you reached out to the teenage friend of yours to ask her if she remembers it. And I don't know if I want to give it away, but starting with your obsession, this is my psychoanalysis, with UFOs is because you feel like you saw one when you were 15. And you need to get to the bottom of that. What was that?
I was interested before that. Oh. I never expected to see anything.
Right.
But then I did. And I had a kind of classic sighting, although it wasn't, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know till after, probably years afterwards, that what I had was a classic sighting. I was driving through the woods, coming home from a movie with my girlfriend at the time and my best friend at the time. We look up, we see what in my memory looks like a kind of orangish, reddish fireball is the best description of it that I can come up with. But I don't remember thinking, oh, that's a fireball at the time. And it was just sort of moving across the sky relatively slowly, silently. And I remember, I feel like she must have been driving because I didn't have my driver's license, and we wanted to follow it, but we couldn't because we were on a windy road in the woods. So we watched it as far as we could, and then we couldn't watch it no more. The next day, I remember getting up, checking the newspaper, the local newspaper, or the Courier News, to see if a plane had crashed or what that was. There was nothing in the paper.
Right.
So that was the mystery. And then we never talked about it, which I think is weird. Like, we never talked about it. So years go by, I'm talking to my kids about UFOs. I say, hey, I had a UFO encounter, and I was with two other people, but I bet if I ask my girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend, who I was still in sort of intermittent communication with, if she remembers this, she will say no. I just know that she will say no. I text her. I say, do you remember this? And she says no. And you can read the text exchange in the piece. So there's one of two possibilities. Either I have a false memory, which is weird, or I really saw something, and which is weird. But there is a phenomena among people who witness this stuff, both UFO stuff and paranormal stuff, called emotional dampening, where this is a kind of common occurrence where you don't talk about it, you just sort of put it into a little file in your head, and then you just go about your day. It's a common thing. But I can't explain what happened there. I don't understand it. Because to my knowledge, I have no other false memories. And the fact that I remember like the two parts of it, it wasn't just the night part. It was also the subsequent morning part where I got up and checked the paper. I have distinct memories of both of these things, but am I just making them up? Like, it's just weird, right? That's weird.
I think it probably is really common, but most people don't ever realize that because they don't trace it back. The way that you trace it back, a lot of people don't do that. I remember, what was his name? Malcolm Gladwell did a whole thing about memory and how exactly what you just described. Two people you remember. He uses an example of 9/11, where people were on 9/11. Guy reaches out to his neighbor and said, remember, I came to your apartment. He's like, I didn't even live there then. I didn't live there then. I was in Minnesota on 9/11. He's like, what? I went to your apartment. I remember it. And that's a somewhat similar to what you're describing, because it's this traumatic or this break in reality. And I don't know how to describe it. And I've had that with my own brother when we had a violent incident in our home. And I described my side of it. He goes, that never happened. I go, it definitely happened. I remember
the entire incident never happened.
The one very specific part, which I'll describe to you off air, and everybody else will be pissing me for. But I'm not going to be a dick to my brother. So, yeah, I think it might be a common thing if people ever explore it. Most people probably don't. You did. But let's move past, because we can't figure that out. That's crazy, and everybody should read that and subscribe to Michael's Substack for stuff like that, because it's really honest and vulnerable. You are like going nuts on the Twitter and writing a lot about this latest, and I think even before this, you've been. But I just talked with Mick West for an hour on the podcast yesterday. I'm a big fan of his work. I read his book. I interviewed him before, and it seems like you are more, I don't know. Where are you? What do you think about this latest? What do you think in general about if we've ever had contact, if we have spacecraft, if the government's hiding stuff?
Well, I've always been despite my own experience, I would say I've always been a skeptic. I've always been somebody who was sort of like, yeah, I guess it's possible, but it just seems so unlikely. It just seems like we would know. And I kind of didn't even really pay attention much to it for many years until, I sort of paid a sort of scant attention to it until 2017, when the New York Times article broke. And the New York Times article, which Mick probably mentioned, was about Pentagon studying UFOs for years in a secret program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was on the front page of the New York Times. And a similar thing happened to my experience, which is that was on the front page of the New York Times, and basically nobody talked about it. That was to me, perfect case of emotional dampening, for days and days. It just sort of disappeared. And then gradually it sort of percolated into the national consciousness that the Pentagon was acknowledging that UFOs are real. Now, when I say UFOs, or UAP, but I just like the old school UFO, they never said these are extraterrestrial, just that these are things that are flying around in our skies with some regularity. We have no idea what they are. And by the way, here's some video of them. So at that point, I started delving back into it, because I was like, well, the U.S. government is basically, confirming that UFOs are real. So I'm going to start paying a lot more attention to this. Now, I think that says something about my own character, which I'm not proud of, which is that I needed the government to be like, it's okay, Michael, you can believe in UFOs. I don't like that I needed their permission for me to get reinterested in it. Although the fact that they put their imprimatur on it definitely excited me.
I think
I've been paying attention since then. And so not less than maybe a month ago or something, a guy named Gary Nolan, who's a neurologist. I can't remember his exact field. He's a doctor, but he's a well-known cancer researcher. He's a very bright guy. He's got a ton of patents to his name. He's also a dedicated studier of the phenomena as we talk about it in UFO circles.
He's an immunologist.
He's an immunologist?
Stanford University, Gary Nolan. Yeah, go ahead, though. Yeah.
He gave a very definitive talk at the SALT conference in New York City, I believe, which is one of these think tanky organizations, where they have guests come up and talk about random shit. And
Stanford professor Gary Nolan says aliens already have arrived, 100% living among us. That's the headline.
So that's the headline. Now, Nolan is well known in the UFO community. And the thing that you can say definitively about him is he's not a crank. He's not a quack. He's not a nut. Like, this is a very sober dude who's been studying this kind of in his off hours for years. And for him to come out and say this definitively, in my mind, was a little bit earth shaking because he has a professional reputation to maintain. He just wouldn't do that. He's a guy like Christopher Mellon, who is another one of these. He's a former government official, deputy director of, I want to say, national security, something.
Right.
It's, some big muckety muck in the government.
Yeah, no, I think that's why these people are always worth listening to, because of, I think you're making a really strong case. Now, were you done? Go ahead.
No, I mean, just he came out and said very definitively, like, this is true. 100% is what he said. And he didn't leave any margin for error there. That really perked up my ears. And then a few weeks later, NASA had their briefing with Arrow. Arrow is the all anomaly resolution office set up in the past couple of years to study this stuff. And they basically said, look, we don't know. We don't know yet. We don't have any evidence yet. We don't have enough data yet. Fine. That's all fine. But then they said, but what we do have is these flying orbs that we see all over the world.
So I want badly to believe in aliens and ghosts. I want to see one. I want to experience one. I want to be one. I want to be anally probed by. Do you?
I mean, I can't say I want to. I mean, I wouldn't say no.
Maybe it's traumatic, actually. I
don't know. Look, if the opportunity presented itself, they're like, hey, we're going to bring you aboard the ship.
Yeah.
We're gonna meet you. The only thing is you have to undergo a probe. I'd be like, all right, that doesn't sound so bad. Fine.
Yeah,
I would ask. Like well worth the price of admission to me.
Yeah. I think if rimming is a thing on alien spacecraft, then
I'd happily get an ET rimming.
Yeah.
That would be that. I mean,
yeah.
If they give you a T-shirt at the end, like a sort of novelty T-shirt, sure. Like I got beamed above the mothership, and all I got was an alien rimming, I'd be like, yeah, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, I would love that. It'd be so weird if they had T-shirts, but still, yeah, they're so kitschy up in those.
That's the thing that would strike you. You'd be like, yeah, they beam me up through my ceiling, but isn't it weird that they had T-shirts?
It was weird. It's like they had brought me into this room, and it was like I was in Virginia Beach. They had like tattoos. It was very strange. Okay, so
now, I assume what Mick West said was, this is all well and good, but there's no proof, right?
Yes, but Mick West says, I Googled real quick. I'm very quick at Googling on the spot. So Mick West says about Gary Nolan, who you're referencing. Evidence of non-human technology would be amazing, but let's look at the evidence behind Gary Nolan's 100% claim I mentioned in the headline there. And Mick says, stories people have told him, acts of government based on similar stories, his own stories of alien-esque encounters. That's it. No actual hard evidence. So big promises, ... That's what Mick West says about that. That was a quick search, though, Michael. So
yes, but I would say to Mick West, and he's absolutely right, by the way, I would say that the background, there's a little bit more context to that, which is that there has been a kind of buzzing in the UFO community that 2023 was going to be this big year for reasons that had not been specified. Okay. It seemed like there were going to be maybe some whistleblowers who were going to come forward. Mm-hmm. So my guess is when Nolan was on that stage talking about it, what he was actually talking about was this guy, Dave Grush, who he knew was going to be coming out with these allegations.
Wow.
But he couldn't say that at that point.
Well, yeah.
Which is why I think he felt comfortable saying 100%. And I also think he's privy to other information that he's not comfortable sharing on stage.
I wonder, as we're talking, if you would be interested in having a conversation with Mick West, because I would want to listen to that.
I think he would probably just, I don't know, maybe. I think our perspectives on it probably actually aren't that different, which is, he's a professional skeptic and debunker.
Yeah.
which is fine. I think the world needs that.
You are too, though.
No, well, I'm not a professional. I'm not that, I'm not that well informed about any of this stuff. Like, I'm just a guy who like goes on Google like anybody else.
Yeah, but that's why I think like you would have a way better conversation than I did or than I am with you right now. And so whatever, we'll talk about it later. But if you ever want to do that, I would make it happen, or I'd just like to see you two make it happen. But I'd make that happen tomorrow. All right. But before I asked you for this amount of time, and I haven't gotten to ask you about the politics. Do you have a few more minutes to talk about the?
Yeah, we can keep going.
Okay. Well, you've been writing on Substack.
I mean, it's almost time for Aperol Spritz here in Roma.
You get
to 5 o'clock. It's time for your Aperol Spritz.
Too bitter. Molto bitter.
Doesn't taste molto bitter here. It's the nectar of the gods here. I can see in Milwaukee or wherever you are that, that would be bitter. But here it's...
Milwaukee. Yes. I can't believe you figured me out that my shed is right in Milwaukee. First of all, the state of America is scary. You have things to say about that, but you're in Italy where you're paying attention to their politics. So you got a fascist lady in charge, it would seem.
But such a lowercase f fascist.
Yeah.
Barely a fascist at all, is my understanding.
Is that right?
Just, she seems, look, by the way, no, I'm not paying any attention to Italian politics. I don't know anything. All I saw is that Silvio Berlusconi, the former prime minister, who is the Italian equivalent to Trump, he's been hospitalized in Milan.
Oh, no.
And I thought to myself, if he dies and Trump gets indicted and Pat Robertson dies all in the same week, that's a pretty good week.
Yeah, I saw your tweet yesterday about that, and I meant to ask you. You were excited about Pat Robertson's death, and as I was.
I may be overstating it.
I was excited.
But certainly happy.
Yeah, terrible person. Donald Trump got indicted. Did that surprise you?
No, I mean, everybody was, I'm just a guy who, goes on Twitter. So everybody was saying he's going to get indicted. He got indicted. And I was like, great, perfect. Yeah. Love it.
What do you think of Mike Pence jumping in?
I think like most people, I'm a little bit baffled. Like who does he believe his constituency is? Who does Mike Pence think Mike is going to vote for Mike Pence? I mean, mother will almost certainly vote for Mike Pence. and by the way, almost certainly, I'm not like, I wouldn't give the same assurances that mother's going to vote for Mike Pence that Gary Nolan is willing to give that aliens are living among us. Right. I definitely wouldn't go 100% on that. Absolutely not. So mother, and then Mark Short, who was his chief of staff or something. And then beyond that, I don't know.
He has sons. I think he has several sons.
And he's got a brother, I think, who's in Congress. But who?
The Lord's people. The Lord's people.
The Lord's people all back Trump for reasons that nobody understands.
Yeah, I think we understand him now.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I mean the American evangelical. They've always been
the white evangelical people.
Thank you.
The white evangelicals.
Yeah. Thank you for that correction.
It's crazy. I don't understand his motivation. I mean, unless, like, for him, this is a form of penance. Like, I served as this guy's VP, so my version of self-flagellation is to enter the presidential race and get humiliated through, let's say, South Carolina when he has to drop out.
You also, that's a strong theory, wrote about Chris Christie jumping in. He didn't jump in, but he's in.
No, he waded in.
Yes.
And I guess there's a pun with Wade and with Wade and Wade. Wait and Wade.
Yeah.
And I do have a theory about Chris Christie, because again, Chris Christie has no constituency.
Right.
Nobody wants Chris Christie to be president. I don't even think he has mother. I think I said in my piece, even, he's the former governor of New Jersey. I feel like even Tony Soprano would vote for Trump over Chris Christie.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what he's doing. My theory is he was thinking about it, wanted to do it, didn't have a reason to do it, understood that there's no path for him to do it, but likes the attention and likes to be on stage. And somebody, I mean, my theory is somebody in Ron DeSantis's camp reached out and said, get in, just throw bombs at Trump, throw bomb after bomb after bomb, get filthy with him, get in the mud with him. And when the dust settles and I'm the president, you can be AG. That's my theory of why he's in the race right now. He's trying to take heat from DeSantis.
That's a really good theory. And he also hates Donald Trump. And even more than he hates Donald Trump, he hates Jared Kushner.
Yes.
And his dad, who he put in jail.
But part of the reason he's so distasteful is because when he ran in 2016 and he basically said, I hate Trump. Trump's a ne'er-do-well. Yeah. And then as soon as he gets the nomination, he turns around and he's fluffing his diaper. And I don't understand that. I don't understand the constant hypocrisy. Oh, Lindsey Graham being the most prominent example.
Yeah, but I feel like you do understand that. If I were to say people like Lindsey Graham, Kevin McCarthy, and Chris Christie are just like they're empty barrel of hollow, like their own. They have no values or principles other than kind of putting themselves out and being making money as a well-known. Like they'll go whatever it takes to get elected so they can stay in power and make the money and all the great things that come with being a U.S. senator. Lindsey Graham, he went.
So I do understand. I guess what I don't understand is being that way. That's what I don't understand.
Well, I'm surprised. You're saying that you're filled and you're not hollow.
I'm not hollow. I'm shallow, but I still have some substance. I'm not utterly hollow.
Right.
Just shallow.
All right. Well, final thing. I wanted to ask you this. Speaking of which, you did this really wonderful, super interesting thing to me years back. You became good friends with Meghan McCain. You wrote a book together. You went on tour together. And I wonder if you still talk with her, given, the way that the directions that she's gone in. And I only ask because I, at that time, was friends with her, really friendly with her. Went to lunch a couple times, talked a lot. I tried to help her get into radio, not get in, but to help her. And, but I feel like I wouldn't, I don't know. Do you still talk to her? Are you guys friends? And do you think that people can maintain friendship despite their really harsh differences and ideological differences?
When we became friends, we made a pact with each other, and the pact was this: let us remain friends and let us never allow politics to dissolve our friendship. And that has been the case. I will say, if she had gone in for Trump, I don't think I could have maintained the friendship. But she has been very vocally, stridently anti-Trump from the very beginning. We're still friends. We still talk. I talked with her. Me and my wife talked with her, I want to say last week.
Wow.
After a drunken evening in Roma. My wife was far drunker than I was, but yeah, we are still friends, and I love her. I really do love her. She is somebody who obviously speaks her mind, sometimes puts her foot in her mouth. But I am the same. Like, I also speak my mind. I also put my foot in my mouth. I also say shit I regret. Like, I don't have the platform that she does. My voice isn't as loud as hers can be. But I will say about Meghan is I have seen her change her mind about subjects and be flexible on subjects in ways that, like, I'm not. She's not inflexible. She's not a down the line conservative. For example, like, she's always been incredibly strong on LGBT stuff. You have not been. You have been very anti. Well, I've been leading the anti-trans thing from the very beginning. Which for no reason. That's the thing. It's only been spite, and I don't even know who the spite is directed at.
Why are you doing this?
I don't know, but it's been very profitable, Pete.
Yeah, your Target campaign has been, and your Bud Light campaign have really taken.
Well, I shorted Bud Light. I don't even know that you can short a specific brand within a global conglomerate, but you can. I shorted Bud Light. I made a mint, dude.
I did not. That's why you're in Rome. You know, you're making a ton of money with this phony grassroots turf. Okay, I got to ask you this. I just got this text. Last night I told people I was going to interview you. And I do it like I hang out with listeners. I actually really am friends with the people who pay me and support me.
When your audience is about 12 people, you can do that.
Yeah, no, we do. But they all pay a lot. They're all super rich.
$50,000 a month to your Patreon.
It's limited.
To get high quality content.
My Patreon is exclusive. It's limited to 12 subscribers. And they're all very, very well
all Martin Shkreli. It's good for you.
They're just different accounts. Shkreli 107. So the guy says to me, Gareth, you would love this guy, Gareth Sever. He's a performer and does what's it called, like stomp like performance, like Blue Man Group. He has his own thing called Buckets and Boards. Anyway, he texted me, I'm super stoked you're interviewing Michael Ian Black. That's awesome. He's definitely a really funny guy. But after following him on Twitter for years, I've been really impressed with how adamantly he speaks out against toxic masculinity, for encouraging male emotional vulnerability. You and him have a lot in common in terms of your incredible openness and talking about men embracing emotions and what not. So I just wanted to end on that. What are your thoughts on that? Where can I read more about your thoughts on that and where we're at as a society, as a culture? It's funny because we kind of touched on this at the beginning. We were talking about the difference between Italian men and how those same men would be seen and treated in small town America when they're the Fonz.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, thanks for the setup, because I wrote a book about it called A Better Man, a mostly serious letter to my son, which is about this very topic.
I did not realize that, and I'm embarrassed now. I'll get it. I'm buying it now.
Very well-regarded book, Pete.
I bought it. Go ahead.
And my book predates Josh Hawley's book, by the
way. I heard that you wrote the foreword to Josh Hawley's book, which I found really surprising.
Because I just want men to come together, sexually. I mean sexually. I should have clarified that.
Just to actually come together. Yeah. So go ahead.
So yeah, my interest in the topic grew out of my interest in reducing gun violence, which I became interested in a serious way after Sandy Hook, because my kids were going to school right next door to Sandy Hook. I was living in Connecticut at the time, and they were in elementary school when it happened, 10 miles from my house. And after Parkland, I wrote a screed on Twitter, basically saying, I'm one of these. I was saying I'm one of these people who keeps blaming the guns, and I still do. But what we never talk about culturally is why is it's always boys and young men who are pulling the trigger. In 90-something% of these cases, it's boys. Why is that? Why don't we ever? And the answer is, it's so obvious that we don't even question it. We're like, well, of course it was a guy. Well, why is that? What's going on with men that they're doing this, that they're committing these violent crimes, specifically in the thing that interested me, gun violence? And then, so I just wrote that because I was upset. And then the New York Times contacted me and they were like, hey, do you want to write an op-ed about this? And I was like, not really. Like, I'm not really qualified to do that. And they were like, well, but yeah, I understand that, but we're the New York Times. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I'll do that.
They just reminded you who they were, and then you just changed your mind?
Basically.
You're like, yeah, I guess if you think I can, I'll do it. Yeah.
That's kind of what it was like. They're like, yeah, but we're the New York Times, so don't you think you should? I'm like, yeah, I guess I should.
Oh my God, I've done that so many times, by the way, in my career, where organizations like, would you come in and speak? I'm like, I have no idea about your bit. They're like, well, it's $5,000. I'm like, yeah, when is can you send?
If they had offered me $5,000, it wouldn't even been a thought, but this is free.
I by the way, said that on the record by $4,500.
Several grand. So I wrote that, and then that came out, and then a publisher came to me and said, "Do you want to write a book about it?" And I said the same thing. I was like, "I'm not qualified." They're like, "But we'll pay you not very much money." I was like, "All right, then keep talking." Keep talking.
Well, I'm going to get it and read it and learn more about it and then talk to you about it. I'm glad that you wrote it, and I think that you are qualified to do a lot of stuff, and mainly to do my show. So I'm going to let you go, and I'm hoping that you'll come back and we can talk again about any of these things. This has been wonderful. We've talked about a lot of stuff, and I'm a huge fan, and I really appreciate you saying yes and doing this. Thank you.
Pete, I had nothing else to do.
Thank you, Michael.
There he goes, everybody. Michael Ian Black on Twitter.substack.com, Patreon.com. Go follow, subscribe, throw him some money if you like what he's doing. As I always do, I was really happy that he sat down with me. That was really a special treat, a lot of fun. It was great to dance with him and follow along, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed doing it. I can't do it without you and your support, so subscribe now, patreon.com/Pete Dominic, or just go to standupwithpete.com, find out more about the show, the show notes, give a review to it on Spotify and Apple if you haven't already, and I will talk to you tomorrow. And here's your quote of the day from Eckhart Tolle. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. Ooh, I like that. And I start my meditations with some version of that as well. And I hope you do. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. John Carroll on tour. Check him out, johncarroll.org. Take us away, brother.
You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right. We got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.